I risked everything to save my sister from her father's wrath. But then I found out she was the one who told him where I was hiding. I remember the way the rain fell that night, like the sky itself couldn't bear what was happening inside our house. Thunder echoed above, but it was nothing compared to the roar of my father's voice. He was drunk again, and the storm in his chest had been brewing all day. We knew the signs. The slow clenching of his jaw, the twitch in his temple, the way he'd stare at us like we were nothing more than the ashes of his own broken dreams. But that night he snapped. I was 17, Mira had just turned 15. We were close, not in the way sisters usually are, but in the way soldiers in the same foxhole become. We knew how to hide the bruises, how to lock the door at just the right angle to buy us a few more minutes, how to distract him, stall him, lie for each other. We weren't children in that house. We were survivors. Mom had left years ago. I used to think she was a coward, that she abandoned us. But by the time I turned 16, I understood. You don't walk away from a man like our father, you escape. And escape usually means leaving something or someone behind. Mira was always the quieter one, a little softer. She kept her head down, her voice low, always trying to please him. I don't know if she did it out of fear or hope that maybe one day he'd change. But I'd already stopped believing in change. I'd been planning our exit for months, saving up every penny from tutoring, cleaning houses after school, even stealing from his wallet when he passed out. I had a burner phone, a contact on the outskirts of town who owed me a favor, a one-way train ticket under a different name. I was ready, but she wasn't. She was always hesitant. What if he finds us? She'd whisper. What if it's worse? What if we run and things fall apart? I'd grab her hands and look her dead in the eyes. Then we fall apart together. But at least we're free. The night everything came crashing down, he found a journal in Mira's room. Just a few pages, old thoughts, dreams, and unfortunately, some of my escape plans scribbled in code. I'd warned her never to write anything, never to leave a trail. But she said she needed a place to breathe. I came home to the sound of shattering glass. The living room lamp lay in pieces. Mira was backed into a corner, her face pale, eyes brimming with silent tears. He had her journal in his hand, and he was screaming. You think you can run from me? He roared. You think you can shame me like your mother did? What did you write in here, huh? What the hell is this? I didn't even think. I threw myself between them. He backhanded me across the face, but it barely registered. I stood my ground, blood dripping from my lip, and I lied straight through my teeth. It was me. I wrote it. She doesn't know anything about it. He looked at Mira, then back at me. His face twisted into something unrecognizable. And then he laughed. Oh, I know she didn't write it. She's too much of a coward. But you always thought you were smarter than me. Well, let's see how smart you are when I lock you in that basement for the week. That was the night I made the choice. Not to escape later, but right then. While he stumbled into the kitchen to grab another drink, I grabbed Mira's arm and yanked her up the stairs. We didn't pack. We didn't even take shoes. Just ran. Down the back alley, across the field behind the old school, into the woods. I had a spot. A small cabin deep in the forest, nearly forgotten. I'd cleaned it out weeks ago, stashed supplies. It wasn't safe forever, but it could buy us time. We stayed there for 4 days. Just enough time for him to assume we were gone for good, or that someone had taken us in. She was quiet most of the time, curled in a blanket, watching the door. I told her everything would be okay, that we'd get out of the city, that I had a plan to change our names, that this was the beginning of a new life. And she nodded, smiled, even. I trust you, she whispered. I always trust you. And I believed her. By the 5th night, I left her at the cabin for a few hours, just long enough to retrieve the final documents and cash from my friend, a woman who worked the night shift at a closed-down diner. She had everything we needed: IDs, tickets, even a forged custody letter. I came back just before dawn. The cabin door was wide open. The blankets were thrown aside. Her shoes, the ones she swore she'd never run in, were missing. And my heart, it stopped. I looked around for a note, a sign, anything, but there was nothing. At first, I told myself maybe she just went to find help. Maybe she panicked. But even then, I felt it in my gut, that quiet pull of dread that told me this wasn't abandonment. It was betrayal. 2 hours later, I heard the crunch of boots in the leaves. I barely had time to grab the knife under the floorboard when he stormed in, our father. And he wasn't alone. Two of his friends, men I'd spent a lifetime avoiding, came with him. Big, loud, reeking of whiskey and rage. "There she is," one of them sneered. Just like she said. I barely escaped. Slashed one across the arm, kicked the other in the knee, dove out the back window and ran until my lungs nearly collapsed. I didn't stop until I reached the train yard, bleeding and shaking, hiding between rusted freight cars. And as I crouched there, trying to piece it all together, it hit me. She said. Mira told them. She knew where I was. She knew everything. And she gave me up. I don't remember how long I sat between those freight cars, my back pressed against cold metal, my breath fogging in the night air. My face stung from the slap, my ribs ached, my knees were bruised, but none of that compared to the pain clawing inside my chest. Mira. The same girl I used to sneak cookies for when she was too scared to ask for dinner. The same girl who used to sleep with her back against mine because she said the monsters couldn't reach her if I was there. She gave me up. She gave me up. At first, I refused to believe it. Maybe he had found us another way, tracked my footprints, found something we left behind. But the way he said it, just like she said, I could still see it. The way she had looked at me in the cabin, eyes wide, hands shaking. Not just from fear, but from conflict. And I had missed it. Because I wanted to believe she was innocent. But now I saw everything. I waited until the sun crept over the horizon before I moved again. The city was waking up. Trucks rumbled past. Sirens echoed somewhere far away. I kept to the alleys, hood pulled low, body hunched to hide the bruises. No one noticed me. No one ever did. I ended up at an old public library. It was one of the few places open that early, and more importantly, it had cameras I could use to watch the exits. I slumped into a corner, heart pounding, and opened the burner phone. No missed calls. No texts. I hesitated, then dialed the only number I dared. She answered on the second ring. Leah? I could hear Mira's breath on the other end. She sounded calm. Too calm. I didn't speak right away. I was afraid of what I might say, or scream. So she spoke first. I'm glad you're okay. A silence stretched between us like a wire, tight, waiting to snap. I clenched my fist. You told him. I could hear her swallow. Leah. He was going to kill us. He was out of control. I didn't know what to do. You knew what to do, I snapped. You wait. You stay quiet. You don't betray the only person who ever fought for you. It wasn't like that, she whispered. He promised. He said if I told him where you were, he wouldn't hurt you. He said he just wanted to talk. I laughed. Cold. Shaking. And you believed him? After everything? Her silence was answer enough. I didn't mean for it to go like that, she said softly. I thought maybe if I gave him something, he'd calm down. I was scared. Know you were weak. And I paid the price. Leah. I hung up. The next few days were a blur. I stayed hidden, moving from bus stations to shelters to rooftops. I kept the burner phone off. I avoided every street I used to know. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just watched. My mind ran in circles, trying to understand it. Why would she do it? Why now? Why me? We used to promise each other we'd never become like Mom, scared, helpless, broken. But in one moment, Mira had become something worse. She became like him. She lied. She manipulated. She used my trust like a weapon. I started following them. I knew where he lived, the house I escaped from. But I never expected to see her walk back through that door like she belonged there. She stayed. She chose to stay. From a distance, I watched them. Him yelling, her flinching, but never leaving. I saw her walk to the store. Saw her meet up with an older man in a car. Saw her come back hours later with new clothes and makeup. Something in me twisted. She wasn't the girl I left in the cabin. She was changing. Fast. Then, one night, I saw them together at a diner on the edge of town. Her and my father, eating like nothing had ever happened. Laughing like some strange, distorted version of a family. I wanted to storm in, scream, drag her out by her hair and force her to explain. But I didn't. Because something else had taken root inside me. Not confusion. Not pain. Purpose. That night, I broke into my old school. The janitor still left the window in the west wing cracked open, a habit I remembered from sophomore year. I snuck into the drama classroom and pulled open the storage cabinet. My emergency stash was still taped to the inside panel. A USB drive. A notebook. And a key. The USB had recordings. Some from my phone, others from hidden mics I used to test for fun during my AV club phase. Things I recorded without even realizing how valuable they'd become. Evidence of my father's rages. His threats. One particularly damning audio where he bragged to a friend about breaking the girls in like dogs. The notebook was worse, full of everything Mira and I had documented. Times, dates, hospital visits we covered up, names of people he owed, people who owed him. Enough filth to ruin him if I played my cards right. And the key? That was for something I had buried long ago. A safety deposit box under an alias. Inside, a copy of a police report I'd filed and withdrawn the night he beat our neighbor into a coma. Photos of bruises I hid, medical forms forged to say I fell down the stairs. A blood-stained t-shirt I never washed. I had always planned to disappear. But now I plan to destroy. 2 weeks later, I approached Mira in broad daylight. In the middle of a crowded street. She was alone, stepping out of the same black car I'd seen her in before. She froze when she saw me. Her face went pale. Leah? I didn't blink. We need to talk. I can't. He'll be. You will, or I swear I'll scream every secret you've ever kept in front of this crowd. Her eyes darted nervously, but I saw it. Guilt. Fear. Recognition. We slipped into a corner cafe, and I ordered 2 black coffees. She didn't touch hers. I didn't touch mine. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. You don't, I said. You don't get to fix it. You broke it. Tears filled her eyes. I made a mistake. I was scared. You weren't scared when you sat in that diner with him. You weren't scared when you gave him directions. You weren't scared when I begged you to run, and you stayed behind. Her voice cracked. I didn't think you'd survive. Then you don't know me at all. I leaned in closer. Listen carefully, Mira. You have one chance to make this right. 1. You're going to help me take him down. Publicly. Legally. Completely. You're going to testify. You're going to hand over anything you know. And if you even think about backing out again, I swear I'll burn you both down together. She was shaking now. And what if he hurts me? She asked quietly. I stared at her. Then maybe you'll finally understand what it felt like to be me. I thought confrontation would bring clarity. I thought looking Mira in the eye and laying out her betrayal would somehow settle the storm in my chest. But it didn't. If anything, it made the rage worse. Colder. Heavier. Sharper. It was like everything I had been suppressing since childhood finally came bubbling up. All those nights, I stayed awake listening to footsteps in the hallway, trying to guess which of us he'd choose to hurt. All the birthdays that ended in bruises. All the fake smiles at school while my body ached under my hoodie. I had spent years trying to protect Mira. And now I realized I hadn't just protected her from him. I protected her from me, from knowing what I was capable of when pushed far enough. That protection was gone. After our meeting in the cafe, Mira went quiet. I gave her a week to respond to confirm she was ready to help take him down. But she didn't call. No message. No email. No signal. Nothing. I checked the hospital records in secret, nothing. Checked police reports, nothing. I hacked into the local school system to see if she'd re-enroll. Nothing. But I did catch a whisper from one of my old friends, someone who still lived in the neighborhood. She said she'd seen Mira around, wearing new clothes, expensive ones, hair freshly done, with a new phone. She looks good, she told me. Not scared, not hurt. And just like that, I knew Mira wasn't hiding. She was choosing. I knew what I had to do next. It started with the USB. I walked into a lawyer's office under a fake name and dropped it into their mailbox with a note. You want to make a name for yourself? Here's your case. One abusive drunk. One broken family. Years of evidence. You're welcome. Then I made 6 more copies. One went to a journalist I knew from the shelter circuit, a guy who owed me after I saved him from a bar fight 2 winters ago. One to a Women's Aid Foundation. One to a school counselor who had ignored our bruises for years, just to make her squirm. And the rest? I mailed to the police. But I wasn't done. I needed Mira to see the damage. I needed her to watch it unfold and understand that the storm she helped unleash could never be contained again. So I called her. No burner phone this time. I wanted her to know it was me. She picked up, breathless. Leah? You've got 48 hours to come clean to the police and back up everything I sent. After that, you're on your own. I can't, she stammered. He said if I speak, he'll. You think I care? I interrupted, voice cold. You made your bed, Mira. Lie in it. I paused. Or don't. I don't care anymore. Then I hung up. The fallout came faster than I expected. The lawyer ran with the case. The news outlets picked it up like wildfire. Photos, audio, medical reports, the whole rotten truth. Our father was arrested within 2 days. Cuffed on the steps of his workplace, screaming about how we were liars and ungrateful. Mira didn't testify. She stayed quiet. Disappeared. I heard through the grapevine that she moved in with that same man I saw her with, the older one. Rumor was he had money, influence, enough to keep her safe. Or maybe just enough to keep her silent. I wish I could say that the victory felt good. That watching him drag through the mud, seeing the fear in his eyes when the cuffs clicked shut, that it gave me peace. But it didn't. Because every time I closed my eyes, I didn't see him. I saw her. Weeks passed, the trial loomed. My name was redacted from public documents, but anyone with a brain could put the pieces together. My face ended up on a few anonymous survivor blogs. Some praised me. Some questioned the timing. Some said I was just seeking attention. I didn't care. Let them talk. What haunted me wasn't the trial. It wasn't the old memories. It was one question that echoed every time I tried to move on. Why did she choose him? She didn't just betray me once. She stayed with him. Even after he tried to trap me. Even after I almost died. Even after the truth came out. Why? I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her mouth. Not excuses, not tears, not fear. Truth. So I found her. It wasn't hard. She was living just outside the city in a nice little townhouse with white curtains and a ceramic cat on the porch. I waited outside for 3 hours until she stepped out to water the plants. When she saw me, she froze. I'm not here to hurt you, I said, raising both hands. I just want the truth. Her eyes flickered toward the window, probably wondering if her boyfriend was watching. Then she sighed. Come inside. The inside of the townhouse smelled like fresh paint and rosemary. Fake smiles on the walls in silver frames. Her hair was longer. Her skin clearer. She looked like she belonged in someone else's life. We sat on opposite couches. I'm not going to apologize again, she said quietly. I've said it 1,000 times. I don't want an apology, I said. I want an explanation. She stared down at her hands. picked at a scab near her thumb, took a breath. I was scared. That part is true. But it wasn't just fear of him. It was fear of losing everything. You always had plans, Leah. You had backups. You were strong. You knew how to run. I didn't. She looked up, eyes glossy. I thought if I stayed, if I kept him calm, then maybe you could get away. And maybe if I played it right, he wouldn't come after you again. That's not what you did, I said, voice flat. You told him where I was. You handed me over. She nodded. I did. Because I thought I could control him. I laughed bitterly. You thought you could control a monster? No, she said. I thought I could control you. That stunned me. I was always second, she whispered. Second to your plans. Second to your fire. Second to your escape. I was tired of being protected. Tired of being carried. I wanted to prove I could make a choice, even if it was the wrong one. I stared at her. Something inside me cracked. So you chose him? Just to feel powerful? She didn't answer. But she didn't deny it either. I stood up. Walked to the door. I want you to remember something, I said. When he goes to prison. When people whisper about our family. When your name becomes a footnote in my story. I want you to remember the one thing you feared the most. She looked up. That I didn't need you to save me, I said. You needed me. And then I left. Revenge isn't rage. Not the kind I chose, anyway. Rage is messy, explosive, wild. It makes you reckless. It burns everything, including yourself. But revenge. Real revenge is quiet. It's methodical. It waits. It watches. It doesn't scream. It smiles. And that's what I did. I smiled. The day the trial began, my father walked into the courthouse in handcuffs, head high, like some kind of war hero. He smirked at the cameras, whispered something to his lawyer, adjusted his tie like he hadn't choked me with that same hand 5 years ago. I sat in the back row, behind the barrier, anonymous. Hidden behind tinted glasses and a wig. No one noticed me. But he did. Our eyes met for a brief moment. He tilted his head. Smiled. Like he still had control. That was his mistake. I testified on the third day. The prosecutor cleared the room. Only the judge, the lawyers, and the court reporter remained. My name was sealed. My face hidden behind a screen. But my voice? Unfiltered. Unapologetic. I told the court everything. The nights he locked us in the basement. The way Mira used to scream in her sleep. The broken ribs I lied about. The time he smashed my head against the fridge door because I burned the toast. And I ended with one line. He didn't just hurt us. He made us believe no one would care. The silence in that room was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. Even from behind the partition, I could feel it, the shift. They believed me. He was done. I wasn't there when the verdict was read. I didn't need to be. 22 years without parole. The newspapers called it a landmark domestic abuse case. The journalists paraded his mugshot across every channel. The community that once looked the other way now whispered about how they always knew something was off. Justice had been served. But I wasn't finished. I had one more name on my list. Mira. She never testified. Never submitted a statement. Never stood beside me. Instead, she posted cryptic quotes online about survival and forgiveness while living in that pristine townhouse with her wealthy boyfriend and pretending she had no idea what the rest of us went through. I watched her Instagram stories through a fake account. Lavish dinners. Spa days. A new necklace every other week. Influencer aesthetics and fake laughter. She was building a life out of the ashes she helped create, while I was still sweeping up the remains. So I gave her a gift. She found the envelope on her porch. No return address. Inside, one USB, one photograph, and one sentence written in clean, typewritten font. This is who he really is. And now, everyone else will know too. The USB contained a secret I had never shared, an audio recording Mira didn't know I had. A conversation between her and our father, 3 days after I escaped the cabin. In it, she tells him exactly where I am. She gives directions, laughs nervously, and he calls her his good girl. The photo? A freeze frame of her from that very conversation. Clear. Identifiable. I didn't release it to the public. Not yet. I just let her know I could. She called me an hour later. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. Then came the messages. Leah, please. Don't do this. I didn't know you recorded that. I was trying to protect you in my own way. Please don't ruin my life. The irony made me laugh out loud. Ruin her life? She had ruined mine. I was giving her a fraction of the fallout she deserved. But I didn't reply. I let her twist. That week, her boyfriend dumped her. I didn't have to do anything. The fear of exposure was enough. Maybe she confessed. Maybe he listened to the audio. Maybe he just saw through her at last. Either way, she was out. I know this because 2 days later, she showed up at my new apartment. Yes, I had one. A real place. A space of my own. Paid for with hush money from 2 local news agencies who wanted exclusive access to the survivor who took him down. She stood at my door, eyes hollow, lips trembling. I have nowhere to go. I leaned against the frame. "And? I thought you could help me." Her voice cracked. I thought maybe we could start over. That was the moment I realized something chilling. She still didn't get it. She still thought I loved her enough to save her. She still thought I was the same girl who used to give her the bigger slice of cake. Who used to whisper bedtime stories when the screams downstairs got too loud. Who used to shield her from every blow like my own body was built to break first. That girl died in that cabin. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and stood between her and the hallway like a wall. "You don't need me," I said. "You never did. Remember?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Leah, please." I smiled. The cold kind. "You chose him," I whispered. "So live with what's left of him." Then I turned, walked back inside, and locked the door. The messages kept coming for a while after that, desperate ones, angry ones, then quiet ones, the kind that sound like someone reaching through fog, hoping for a hand that isn't there anymore. Eventually, they stopped. I don't know where she is now. I don't care. My revenge wasn't fire and fury. It wasn't bullets or blood. It was watching her drown in the silence she built for herself. And finally, breathing an air that wasn't poisoned by her lies. You'd think that after all that, it would be over. The court sentence, the exposure, the revenge. But real life isn't like the movies. It doesn't tie itself up in neat little ribbons. Closure isn't a moment. It's a decision you make over and over again, even when the ghosts still knock. For a while, I tried to live. I got a job. I went to therapy, sat in stiff chairs with walls covered in "You are enough" posters, telling my story again and again to strangers with soft eyes and quiet notebooks. I even made a friend. A real one. Her name was Elise. She worked at a bookstore downtown and had scars of her own, different shapes, same shadows. I told her everything. Except one thing. The twist. It started with a letter. A real one. Envelope, stamp, my name written in crooked cursive. No return address. Inside, a short message. I had to choose. "I'm sorry you didn't understand why. But one day you will." There was no signature. But I didn't need one. Mira. I stared at those words for hours. I had to choose. What the hell did that mean? I thought she did choose, and not me. I almost burned the letter. But something made me keep it. Maybe it was that part of me that still wanted answers, or closure, or even just one final crack of truth. So I went looking. The trail began at the townhouse. It was empty now, curtains drawn, lights off. I spoke to the neighbors. Most had never met Mira. But the woman next door remembered the man she lived with. He was odd, she told me. Always watching from the window. Seemed very controlling. Controlling. That word struck me. I asked if she ever saw him hurt Mira. She hesitated. I didn't see anything, she said. But I heard things. Fights. Screaming. One night, I almost called the cops. I asked her what night. She thought for a moment. It was a few weeks before the trial. Maybe early March? That didn't add up. That's when I had sent the USB, the photo, the audio file. That's when everything was supposed to be in my hands. But if Mira was being controlled, watched, then maybe. No. I had to be sure. I pulled the court files. Buried in the sealed appendices was something I'd missed. An anonymous witness. Someone who had submitted video evidence, but refused to testify. The lawyer's notes were brief. Anonymous source. Footage recorded inside subject's residence. Confirmed identity. Mira. My breath caught. She had testified. She just hadn't told me. And the video? It wasn't of our father. It was of herself. I filed a request. Pulled strings through the foundation that had helped me after the trial. Sat in a locked room with a monitor and watched the video they said no one outside the legal team had seen. It was grainy. Quiet. But I knew that living room. Knew that voice. The video showed Mira sitting on the couch. Hands shaking. Black eye forming under one lid. She turned to the camera and spoke. If you're watching this, I probably already lost everything. But there's something you need to know. She breathed deep. I lied to him about where Leah was. I gave him the wrong coordinates. Wrong cabin. I needed time. My heart pounded. I knew he wouldn't stop looking, so I gave him something. But I kept the real location from him as long as I could. And when I realized he was going anyway, I made the call. She looked down. I called someone. I told them where Leah really was. I thought they'd get there first. She paused. I failed. But I tried. She rubbed her arms. I stayed because I had to. The man I lived with, he wasn't just my boyfriend. He worked for my father, his business partner, his enforcer. My jaw clenched. I knew if I ran, I'd disappear. If I stayed, I could gather things. Hide flash drives. Record conversations. Keep eyes on them both. Leah was always the fighter. I was never brave like her. She looked at the camera one last time. But I never meant to betray her. I was trying to protect her the only way I could. If she hates me forever, I get it. But I had to choose. And I chose the version of her that lived. Then the video cut. I didn't move for a long time. The screen went black. The lights stayed dim. And something inside me shattered. She hadn't betrayed me. Not completely. She had misled me. Lied. Let me believe the worst. But underneath it all, she had tried. And maybe she had paid for it more than I ever realized. I went home and pulled out the letter again. One day you will. I understood now. She had chosen to be hated to keep me alive. She had accepted the role of the villain, knowing it would break me, so I could keep going. And that's what shattered me most. Because now, after everything, I didn't know what to feel anymore. I haven't heard from her since. She disappeared after the trial. No forwarding address. No online trace. Not even the foundation that handled her anonymous evidence could find her. Some say she left the country. Some say she changed her name. Sometimes I like to believe she's on a beach somewhere, reading a book she never got to read as a child, breathing air that doesn't smell like fear. And other times, I wonder if she's still watching, still hoping that I'll forgive her. Forgiveness. That's the twist, isn't it? It's not whether I got revenge. It's whether I could ever let go of it. And the truth? I don't know yet. But I think about her sometimes. The girl with the soft voice and the secret scars. The one I hated. The one I loved. The one who gave me up, or maybe gave me a chance. I think about what I would say if I saw her again. And maybe, just maybe, I'd whisper, "You didn't have to choose between saving me and saving yourself. You could have let me help you." And if she said nothing, just like she always did when words were too heavy, I'd understand. Because I risked everything to save my sister from her father's wrath. But she risked everything to save me from mine.